Hey everybody, it's week in review, and yes, we have yet another week that feels like a year, but in the middle of everything else that's happening, I don't want it to be lost on you. The huge, critical, important actions just today taken by the Biden-Harris administration. I know everybody's talking about TikTok. Everybody's talking about the inauguration's going to be inside. Everybody's talking about these crazy nominees, but in the middle of all of that, President Biden and Vice President Harris are still working on behalf of the American people. First up, just this morning, 2,500 people whose sentences were commuted, who were tragic victims of the war on drugs. I want to read for you a little bit of what President Biden said in his statement about this morning's commutations. Today, I am commuting the sentences of nearly 2,500 people convicted of non-violent drug offenses who are serving disproportionately long sentences compared to the sentences they would receive today under current law, policy, and practice. With this action, I have now issued more individual pardons and commutations than any president in U.S. history. Today's clemency action provides relief for individuals who received lengthy sentences based on discredited distinctions between crack and powder cocaine, as well as outdated sentencing enhancements for drug crimes. As Congress recognized through the Fair Sentencing Act and the First Step Act, it is time that we equalize these sentencing disparities. This action is an important step toward righting historic wrongs, correcting sentencing disparities, and providing deserving individuals the opportunity to return to their families and communities after spending far too much time behind bars. He says, I am proud of my record on clemency and will continue to review additional commutations and pardons. So, this is for the what has Biden done for black people crew, the what has Biden done for poor people crew, the Biden isn't keeping his promises crew, the Biden was responsible for the war on drugs crew. I think it's important to note that, as I said previously, President Biden is still working. President Harris is still working. This was the last Friday of their administration. They're done when the clock strikes 12 noon on Monday, but they're still working and they don't owe nobody nothing. And I think the reason why we are still advocating for them to do more is because we know that they are public servants. And we know that it is in their heart to do more. And they're proving it. They're proving it through their actions. Also happening today, and this is huge, I mean gigantic, and again, it's getting buried under so many other things. President Biden and the Biden-Harris administration issued a statement regarding the next 15 drugs that were selected for the Medicare drug price negotiation. Now, for those who don't get it, who are going to wonder a couple of months from now, how did my price get so much lower? Why am I not having to borrow money to get my medication? Why did the pharmacist just tell me $20, please, or your bill is covered, or that's your 4 months prescriptions worth, not your 1 month prescriptions worth? It's because of the actions that were taken to keep big pharma from being the only thing you could afford in your check, where seniors were having to choose between whether they were going to get their medication, whether they were going to eat. 15 additional drugs, obviously trying to get it in before the next president can come and not do a thing at all, but 15 more drugs named. And I think that you would recognize, if you look at this list, some of the ones that are on there, and you might not understand why they matter because you are thinking of the way that you see people using them out in the world, where people have all the money in the world and can use type 2 diabetes medication in order to lose weight. And yes, it is approved for that purposes also, but it is major. It is huge that Ozempic and Wegovy made it onto the list of Medicare negotiations. I'll read a little bit of what he says. President Biden says, today, I'm proud to announce that my administration has selected the next 15 drugs for Medicare drug price negotiation. The drugs treat conditions such as diabetes and cancer, and seniors across the country rely on them. These 15 drugs, together with the 10 drugs that Medicare already negotiated, represent about a third of the Medicare Part D spending on prescription drugs, which means the lower prices my Inflation Reduction Act is delivering will put money back in seniors' pockets across the country. My administration completed the first round of price negotiation last year and delivered dramatic savings, slashing the price of some of the most commonly used drugs in Medicare by about 40 to 80%. The Inflation Reduction Act put the country on a path to lower drug prices. I'm proud of my administration's implementation of this law to deliver lower prices for America's seniors. Now, here's what matters. Once we get a drug on the approved list, then we can advocate that it is approved for people who cannot afford it and are not yet seniors. So we get Medicare first, then we work our way to Medicaid. Why does this matter? As I just finished saying, people who can pay out of pocket $2,000 a month can get Wegovy. People who can pay out of pocket can get Ozempic. People who have private doctors who will write them a script, who have insurance that's cooperating, can get access to these. But who needs it most? Who disproportionately is affected by obesity, which is a medical condition that is like the underlying cause of so many other medical conditions, like type 2 diabetes, like heart disease. Who needs it the most? Disproportionately, Black and brown folks. Disproportionately, poor folks. So when you have an administration that sees that and is willing to take pharmaceutical companies to task and not let them make trillions upon their trillions on the backs of people who can afford it the least but need the medicine the most, that's what public servanthood is about. Last but not least, today, President Biden made a long-awaited statement, and not just statement, but declaration about the Equal Rights Amendment that, frankly, so many advocates have been asking for, not just from this president, but from prior presidents, because it goes without saying, women and men should be treated the same under the law. Here's what he had to say about it. I have supported the Equal Rights Amendment for more than 50 years, and I have long been clear that no one should be discriminated against based on their sex. We, as a nation, must affirm and protect women's equality once and for all. On January 27th, 2020, the Commonwealth of Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. The American Bar Association has recognized that the Equal Rights Amendment has cleared all necessary hurdles to be formally added to the Constitution as the 28th Amendment. I agree with the ABA and with leading legal constitutional scholars that the Equal Rights Amendment has become part of our Constitution. It is long past time to recognize the will of the American people. In keeping with my oath and duty to Constitution and country, I affirm what I believe and what 3/4 of the states have ratified. The 28th Amendment is the law of the land, guaranteeing all Americans equal rights and protections under the law, regardless of their sex. Thank you, President Biden. That's a necessary step. And as he said, yes, 38 states have independently passed legislation making law of the Equal Rights Amendment. And it is past time that it be recognized as the 28th Amendment. And yes, there will be litigation after this. The lawsuits will probably start flying Monday around 1:30 p.m. It doesn't matter though. What happens now is also necessary so we can fight the fight. And maybe the women of this country will realize that we are the majority. Start acting like it. Start moving like it. Start voting like it. Again, these are things that civil rights, social justice advocates have been fighting for years. I appreciate President Biden, Vice President Harris, their administration for keeping their word and doing right by the American people.